So, Mxolisi, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we walk into...
Thank you.
You're welcome, and it's great to have you on the show. Before we walk into the future,
Yeah.
can you please tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
My life, I grew up in two parts. It's in two parts. There was the earlier part of my life up until I was age of 10, where I grew up in South Africa, but mostly living in the rural areas in my formative years of my life. And then at the age of 10, moved to the United States, where my father was going to do his doctorate. And so I had the opportunity to also live there in the US for 10 years.
Right. And can you tell us, what was your dream career when you grew up?
You know, to be honest with you, I originally thought I was going to be a doctor.
Right.
I had an uncle who was a doctor, my mom's cousin, and I really marveled and I admired this man. But soon enough, when I started my university degree, I realized that medicine was not going to be my area or my passion at all.
Right.
So that whole notion of this man that I idealized so much quickly flew out the window in terms of a career prospect. With that being said, I then had to really almost stumble into a different career because I didn't have a plan B, but I sort of stumbled into a different career as a result of a conversation I had with my maths professor, and he sort of introduced me into exploring the possibility of computer science. So I did a semesters of computers, and then the rest is history. I ended up doing a computer science degree. So that became my really first real dream now going forward, was to say, yes, I'm going to be a computer scientist, software engineer, but that also changed along the way. and it took me to another area, into banking, and then later took me into mining, which is where I ended up at. So career, dream career, well, I navigated into different passions as time went by. And so I think at the end of the day, I like to explore and exploring different things. And I think that's why I opened myself up to different paths, different possibilities of where my life could be, where life could take me to. And yeah, that's what it has been like. So what was my actual, I don't think I actually could say now in hindsight that I had a particular career that was really going to be the dream, which at that time, I'm still living today. No, it's a totally different life that I'm living today than what I originally envisaged.
And tell us, who inspired you in your early days?
Oh no, it definitely were my parents. My father, also grew up very much in the rural environment. He became a minister of religion. He was a very bright man, a hardworking man. Ended up doing a master's in theology in Chicago University in 1965. 1970, went on to Harvard to go and do his PhD. And this is the type of man who really showed me what work ethic is about and the importance of working hard and always remembering that you are not defined by your circumstances of your birth, but also by what you yourself define as and the future you want to create for yourself. And so that really inspired me. So I learned the values of studying hard, of working hard. Of course, growing up early in the rural areas, you got to learn a lot of responsibility as a child at a very, very early age. That was my father. My mother was also very hardworking woman. She was a nursing sister, and she brought a different dynamic to the whole thing about working hard. She also brought the very big importance of showing compassion. Not to say that my dad didn't do it, but my mom just had a different way of not always having been a hard driver, but always being able to do things without always having to resort to taking, very harsh measures, about being able to be compassionate and show empathy in people's circumstances. And so those two combinations, and I think she was also very influential in terms of my own father, in terms of how he would actually go about, as much as he was very self-driven and all of that. But I could see how my mom also rubbed on to him about things don't always have to be done, in a very hard way. But, you cannot get things done and across by actually just making sure that people feel good about themselves and helping them also really define, that they are people of value. Nobody doesn't have value, So, yeah, I think those two were a good combination.
So what would you say is driving you today?
Having just, shared the story about my parents, I think what drives me today is probably the experiences that I've gone through in life. It has not always been easy path. I don't think life is ever meant to be an easy path. But I think there are certain things and certain values that you shape you early on that will help you determine how you're going to cope with life. And also along the journey, you start having to sort of discover who you are, what's my purpose? Now, it's not easy when you're at a very young age to be able to do that. But, life throws things at you, which test you, which test your character, which test your resilience. But at the core, the values that were ingrained in you at a very early age tend to be the ones that help you in terms of guiding you to make the decisions that are going to be either good for you or not good for you. So for me, I would say that, having gone through a life where I've been tested, where at once upon a time, I was retrenched in a job, where once upon a time, I almost lost everything because of a business venture that I got into early on in my early 30s, and almost lost everything. Almost lost my house. I had a young family at that stage. And really at that point, my own sense of spirituality actually came to the fold, in the sense that for me to survive that experience, to go through that experience, I finally had to find out for myself that I had to surrender myself and to a higher being, because I couldn't figure it out myself. And in that renewal, this renewal awakening, this new sense of having my own relationship with God, that helped me. And ever since then, that has been the focal point of everything that I do going forward, that I know that I can't do it on my own. And therefore, I know where my source of strength and my sense of whatever little wisdom I may have, that it has to, I seek on that higher power to help guide me in everything that I do.
Thank you. Now, Mxolisi, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
You know, when I mean, in every generation, there will always be leaders. There will be always those who lead. And when one sort of look at the leaders of the past, they've been what I would call good leaders who have really, I think, would have contributed very positively to the well-being of society. And there are leaders who have really been very destructive, not only just obstructive, but very destructive. And a lot of that is still happening because there's a lot of destruction by various type of leaders. So I think for me, the future of leadership is, I can't attribute to any one particular thing, but to say that, in life, we're going to be always confronted with situations as leaders where we're going to have to make very, very tough decisions. And really, the real question for me is that, what do you see your purpose in life? I mean, if you're as a leader, you see yourself as your purpose that you should be an authoritarian, you should be an autocrat, you want power, you drive your own ways through power, through force, then that's the outcome of that will permeate, in terms of the type of leadership style you're going to have. So I would really say every person who aspires really to be a leader, to say, really do a bit of introspection first, about what do you see your purpose being? What values underpin that? And what do you want your legacy to be when you are no longer there? And I think that will then start being reflected by the decisions, by the actions that you take. So I see those are the things that as leaders we all have to grapple with. And I think it's just generally everybody has to grapple with that. But much more important, particularly as leaders, because you have the ability to influence events, influence people, influence the geopolitics, influence the timeline of what is to be by your actions that you take. So there's a lot that rests in a leader about what drives them and what type of impact they can have, today and into the future. So I know that sounds like a very long-winded thing, but it's for me, it's just what as leaders we always have to be grappling with.
And Mxolisi, looking back over your own leadership career, what do you consider most important for building future leaders? In other words, what do we have to do more to develop future leaders?
I never thought I was going to be a leader, to be honest with you. I never aspired to be a leader. There's a thing which is said that, they are born leaders and some leaders are made along the way. I think I was never born a leader. I can attest to that. But, why would I? I mean, if I just really look at my own life, as the issue of humanity sort of got into my heart, about fairness, about equality, about respecting the other person. And therefore, as you find yourself, and again, some of these things are things which are not taught in any, what I would say, leadership program. These are some of the things that I again say that your circumstances can shape this, but your values and your core essence of being will determine what you do with every experience that you are confronted with or in your journey of life. So I would really be saying that at the end of the day, every leader is a human being. You see, at the end of the day, you have at a basic human level issues of respect, okay? Issues of justice, issues of doing what's in the best interest, not only of yourself, not even probably not in the best interest, only in the best interest of what you represent in whatever position you hold as leader, but really what is in the best interest of humanity and society. Because that will determine whether you're going to be a leader that is profit motivated, profit driven. It's about myself, it's about my pocket, it's about my power. Vis-a-vis, we've got issues of climate change now. So are we conscious about how we do business so that we can think about the future generations that, we've got to leave them in a better place than where we are now. So these are the things I think leaders are going to have to really be within themselves. But it starts from within, because at the end of the day, you have a choice to say, you know what, I choose not to do things or to that are going to have a negative impact on society, or I choose to do them because at the end of the day, hey, if I can be rich and I can self-indulge myself, and that's then, but again, each of those will be people in leadership position, and they've got to contend with these things.
Now, these are challenging times as the world is stumbling from one crisis into the next. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
Well, life has always been turbulent since mankind put foot on Earth. It's just that in every history, people can tell you the turbulence. There have been wars, there have been empires that have risen and collapsed. People have suffered the most inhumane situations, either through slavery or whatever. So one thing is very clear: change is inevitable. And with change, there will always be that change that can impact people extremely negatively. What I was saying is that if you had to look at your own lifetime, if I had to say 5, 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's a different world today. So accept that that's going to be like that. So now how do you build resilience within yourself to be able to deal with all this volatile? So leaders are being challenged every day about very big decisions they've got to make. And these decisions, some of them, they are able to shape them, and some of them, they are just a recipient of them, but they have to respond to them. And it's how they are able to respond to them. We have crises as early as yesterday, a month ago, and last year, and the geopolitics being mixed into all of that. We have elections that are taking places in multiple parts of the globe, which are bringing in new leaders. Some are more right-centered, and all of that. And that brings that whole mix. So how do you, as a leader, deal with all of that? I think, first of all, you've got to accept that it's going to happen, but also always find a way to ask yourself, what does it mean, what is happening in the context of how I can respond to this? So the ability to be agile, the ability to be always sometimes yourself understanding the environment that if we don't adapt, we will die, possibly. And therefore, how do you anticipate some of the signals? How do you read some of the signals that are out there to enable yourself to navigate through them and actually even take advantage of some of those for something that can put you in a much better position, either as an individual or as a company, and even sometimes even as a country. You know, adversity in most instances have been the mothers of most intriguing rebirths, if I can call it. So really, it's adversity sometimes is where the greatest opportunities, in as much as we're in that adverse position, where the real opportunities for those who are open-minded and are not wallowing in their sorrows of, oh, things are so bad, to say, okay, things are what they are, but how do we take advantage out of this and for the better?
Thank you.
Those who, well, I was saying that sometimes there are those who decide to be the trailblazers, the one who path a way that has never been before. And most of people like those, they are either are thought to be crazy, to be insane, but they have a conviction, a very really burning vision about what they think they can create. And again, you're going to have a lot of courage, because along the way, you're going to meet so much naysayers, so much opposition, so much resistance, but the desire is so strong that despite all of that, you continue forging through. And by the way, guess what? You're going to make quite a lot of mistakes along the way, because life is about mistakes, okay? And it is whether you see that negatively, that mistake, or you see it as an opportunity for learning, so that you can sharpen yourself for the journey still ahead. So my sense and the way I look at life is that every mistake that I may think is a mistake, and everybody else might think it's a mistake, I say, well, okay, it is what has happened. Yeah, I tried, but what did I learn from it? I don't say that, okay, I'm a baby now. I tried to crawl and I tried to walk and I wasn't able to walk and I fell, that I give up. I said, okay, all right. I now realize that, for me to be able to walk, I need to build certain muscles, to be able to help me stand up, and therefore you keep progressively until I can run a 100-meter sprint and beat a world record. That is all through hard work, hard pay, making mistakes, correcting yourself, and really pushing yourself to the limit. And I think that's what's going to be critical for you to be resilient in the future, where things are going to be so turbulent that you have to be so agile and always prepared to reinvent yourself, to reinvent your way of how you are creating things. And in some instances, you're going to be so far ahead of the game, people will think you are crazy. But hey, you know what? Do you have the guts and the balls to continue doing it?
Right. Thank you. Now, Mxolisi, as a mentor to many future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
I have mentored quite a number of people. I've mentored youngsters who, during my time where I was a CEO at Exxaro, even outside of Exxaro, I continue mentoring youngsters. I think for me is watching people grow in the process. And my aim is always to help the people that I'm engaged with to discover themselves. If I can just help them to discover themselves, their true potential, then I think I have achieved. Because many of us grow up being told that, no, you're not good at this, you can never be this. And therefore, people tend to, along the way, lose confidence in themselves. And some of them even lose the dreams that they had for themselves because somebody said, oh, what, you want to be a dancer? What kind of career? Dancing, somebody, but also during that time, that was what they were passionate about. Like I said, I went from computers to banking to mining. If everywhere along the way somebody said, "What, you want to be this? You can never be that." What do you know about banking? You never went, and when you were doing computer science, you never did any commerce subjects. Well, I went into banking. What do you know about mining? You never studied mining, engineering, or all. I ended up in mining. And in each of these areas, I enjoyed. So I'm always telling the people that you don't have to, your path, you've got many avenues in front of you, and therefore don't limit yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to go and experiment or and infuse yourself in other areas. And I think what also I found very intriguing when I was doing my degree, computer science degree, we had to do the humanities and the social sciences,
right,
as part of electives. Okay, we had to do them. So I immersed myself in romantic music, okay, and the classics, because out of that, I got to appreciate classical music, but not only appreciating classical music, but appreciating the history that was shaping that classical music that was being written at the time, because the music was telling a historical context of events that were happening at that time. You look at the Eroica, the Third Symphony of Beethoven, it was talking about the era of Napoleon Bonaparte before he declared himself an emperor. And then he comes with this music at the end, which is really about rebelling against Napoleon. So what do? I'm experiencing music. I'm also experiencing history. I'm also experiencing about leadership of people during that time. So these are all lessons, because these were leaders who had huge impacts on. And why would a Beethoven actually rebel? Because he was actually, if I can call it, he was actually an activist using music against a regime that was very oppressive and played a big role in actually what was happening during that time. So now and the world is not shaped by code. It's not shaped by the zeros and one. The world is shaped about everything that happens around you, and you almost have to be in tune with that, and therefore you've got to allow yourself to move away from the pure hard, I would say rigid positions that you may have, but understand, hey, if we're going to go and into another part of the world, and expand ourselves in business, do we really understand that environment? Do we understand the people? Do we understand their cultures? Do we understand how, when we come, we are maybe seen as these imperialists, these colonialists coming in there? Well, how do I take that context and immerse myself within their life and within their way of doing things, and not come and try and going to impose things? So these are the things that will help you just open up.
And thank you. And looking back over
so therefore, when I mentor my youngsters, I talk about these things. When I engage them, you see, it's not just to say, oh, you want to be this, okay, what path should I take to go up this career? Alas, what makes you interested in that? What other things do you do besides that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, looking back over your career, Mxolisi, are there any role models of leadership that you encountered and maybe worked with that you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
Oh man, you know what? We are immersed in an environment where we are subjected by all sorts of leaders around us. Okay. And you know, and again, I would say there are those leaders who really inspire, you know, who really create and paint a vision that can be so compelling that, you know, it moves you. But some do it in a very positive way. Some can inspire people in a very polarized way, but it's their essence and their style of leadership. So I think first and foremost, we just have to recognize that being in a position of leadership, you can shape the views of many people. Now, there are many. I mean, when I was very much still involved in business, I used to spend time just understanding what makes some companies very successful, and then they go into a spiral demise, you know? And you'll find that at the center of that is about leadership. You know, one leader had a vision to take something and create greatness out of it, and another leader comes in, and that leader, for whatever reason, you know, just does not have that vision, and a company which was once great dies. And we've seen a lot of those companies that happen. And I wanted to understand, why is it some companies are able to continue growing, become great, and can maintain their greatness, and by and large, I find that a lot of the times you had a leader who was prepared to say that what I have done up to now may not take me into the future, and therefore I'm prepared to reconstruct. I am prepared at this point in time to reinvent myself, to reinvent this organization, because the circumstances around are such that if I don't, I'm either going to die, or, you know, somebody else will come and take over, and I will not be able to be in that position. So really, for me, those leaders who dare to dream big, who dare to really do what other people think are impossible, and throughout the adversities, there's some guys who just, and we've seen a lot of those, you know, he starts in the most obscure place in his life, and yet becomes one of the greatest leaders, you know. So it's not being defined by where you were born, like I said earlier on. It's not your circumstances of your birth that define what you can be. I mean, right now I'm actually watching a season 2 of this of the story of Chasing the Sun. It's called Chasing the Sun.
Right.
How the Springboks
World Cup
won the World Cup in 2019, and how they won it 2023. It's a very insightful story about what leadership can infuse in people with a purpose a very big purpose of selflessness being the driving force of that. Being the driving force. This is not about us, it's about the country. That was, they were doing this thing. So the energy that was mastered about purpose for the better good of society, because in a period when things are not going well in the country, they knew that there's one thing that is a unifier, okay? And if we can rally around that, we can demonstrate that unity, first of all, is achievable. And guess what? In the midst of the abyss, we can rise.
Right.
We can rise collectively. Now, that is true leadership.
Thank you. Now, Mxolisi.
And out of that, if you look at that story, yes, go ahead.
No, please finish.
No, I was saying, out of that, what you see in that story is that because each of these individuals now understand what the common purpose is, they start demonstrating leaderships in their own right. You see, amongst themselves, correcting each other, say, guys, remember what we are here for and what this is all about. Even if you're not chosen on that particular day to play, but you still find a purpose in terms of how you can play your role in understanding how your opponent works in your position so that you can help your team in actually knowing how best to deal and tackle that particular opponent. Centered around one thing. This is not about me. It's not about us. It's about how we become winners as a nation. Now that's leadership.
Thank you. Now, Mxolisi, how can our listeners connect with you and where should they follow you?
I'm social media shy.
Yeah.
I am just social media shy, but you know what? I think I'm at that stage in my life now where I have said that, you know, I have been blessed, you know, in many respects. And mine is to say, what will I leave behind? You know, what is going to be my own legacy? And that's really been born out of, you know, experiencing the joy and the blessings I have of my grandchildren and being very, very concerned and worried about their future, about where our own country is going, and asking myself, if I say I love them so much, what am I doing? What am I actually doing to demonstrate that love? Because if I sit on the sideline and say, well, you know, the problems that we encounter, it's not my problem, it's their problem. You know, good luck, guys. Am I actually demonstrating that love to them? But if I can say, you know what, you know, mine is to play whatever little role that I can to make sure that your future and that generation's future, at least we give them something and we leave them with something that will not only bring hope, but will inspire them to build on top of that. So really mine at this point in time, so my third phase now is, although I say that I'm in retirement, I think it's about finding a bigger purpose, you know, of what one can do to contribute to a better future of this country. And so that's what I choose to do.